What's up YouTube, and welcome to another spicy deck concept, this time centered around Miss Fortune and Renekton, as well as the vulnerable synergies and the scout synergies that they have. So you'll notice right away that the curve for this one is pretty low. We play a lot of cheap and well-statted units, and the core of this deck is a pretty aggressive tempo deck, let's say, somewhere between aggro and mid-range. We just try to flood the board and pressure our opponent as early as possible, either finish the game immediately or force them into uncomfortable blocks. And we can also dictate the pace of combat really well with all of the vulnerable cards we play. In this deck in total we have 17 cards that can give one of our opponent's units vulnerable. And if our early swarming and board control doesn't close out the game, we try to either level up one of the champions, Renekton or MF, or try to finish off the game with a rally with Citrus Courier. Another great finisher can be the list with a scout unit, which is another way of rallying. This can be a bit hard to get sometimes because your strongest unit automatically challenges, and the only really strong scout unit in our deck is going to be Razor Scale Hunter, so not the most consistent combo, but a spicy one. And if it hits something like a Renekton instead, we're also not very sad. To see why this deck is so strong and can overrun a lot of people early on, we play 6 of the better 1-drops, or arguably close to the best 1-drops in the game, Jagged Butchers and Treasure Seekers. We have plenty of ways of triggering Plunder, but we are often also happy to play this as a 2-2. 2-drops, Hired Guns and Rockhoppers, great stat lines, great ways of granting vulnerable. We play Mirai Warden, one of the best 2-drops in the game, also helps us with the board flooding, with the board swarming. 3-drops, Merciless Hunter, another gift for Renekton, this time for real though. MF, of course, one of the build-around cards. Unfortunately, we don't really play ways of protecting her, which is definitely one of the weaknesses in the deck, but we also don't have to go all in on the MF and the MF level up. Turn 4, we start playing our scout units. Island Navigator, just very nice if we play MF on turn 3 and Navigator on turn 4 and have the attack token on turn 4. We can threaten to flip MF as soon as turn 6. Or maybe even turn 5 or so if we get a crazy list or Courier off. Renekton, of course, fairly easy to make advantage of his passive with a stack. Almost always going to be a bunch of vulnerable units on our opponent's side of the board, and that means we can usually push like 4 or 5 overwhelm damage with Renekton every time we swing. And then Renekton is also a great target for the list as well, just buffing him again, maybe getting a level up and pushing a lot of overwhelm damage in one turn. Razor Scale Hunter, again, best of both worlds, scout and vulnerable. And Citrus Courier, just another way of finishing power, just some more top end, and to outrace potential control decks that we might face. For spells, I already mentioned some of them. The list is kind of the build around and the bread and butter of this deck. Doesn't really see play in any other deck, but in this one it's really, really good. For both of its uses. Sometimes you really just want to give a keycard on your opponent's side vulnerable for 0 mana. Something like a Zed or a Poppy, which is very popular right now. But the free attack can also be kind of game-breaking, especially with a Renekton or a Scout unit. Exhaust, another way of dictating combat at focus speed, can sometimes be important, and it's also a way to ensure that our Renekton might hit multiple times because it's very HP conserving on the Renekton. Make It Rain is a tech choice. It doesn't have to be in here, but as long as people are playing a lot of Lurks and a lot of Zed Poppy or Poppy Lulu elusives, anything like that, this should be a great meta call. And that's it for spells. As we can see, not too many of those, rather just an aggressive board-centric deck, but we do have some interesting tech choices for sure. One of the cards that I was really thinking about was Quicksand. Of course, that is definitely a meta call because it's amazing in the Zed Poppy matchup. And you will run into a lot of those, but it is kind of poor in a lot of other matchups, especially whenever we try to outrace our opponent. Some more tech choices might also be combat tricks, either Shaped Stone or Ruthless Predator as other ways of buffing attack, pushing more damage, and Shaped Stone can of course also be used defensively to keep MF or Renekton alive. And another card I did consider putting in here was a Thrumming Swarm. I know this card doesn't really see a lot of play, is kind of almost forgotten, but it can be an additional top-end finisher in this. The only issue is I didn't feel like we would flip our champions often enough to get this conditional effect. I think Thrumming Swarm is only really worth it if you do get that. Otherwise, a card like Ruin Runner is probably just better and more mana efficient. Nonetheless, some interesting top end to consider, but I was pretty happy with this list, and I felt like this was already a pretty good meta call. Now, of course, if there's a meta with a lot of removal running around, this is not going to be the best deck. But right now, when the most common matchups are going to be stuff like Lurk or Elusive Rally, a lot of 1 HP units on one side, which is very weak to Make It Rain, and MF's passive, especially with Vulnerable. And then on the other side, both of those decks are centered around certain units on the board. And if we give a Zed or a Poppy Vulnerable and then remove it, challenge it, even if it gets a barrier, MF or Make It Rain will remove that, and we get rid of that threat, and our opponent's deck runs out of steam pretty quickly. So I feel like there's never been a better meta to try this list out, and it surely was a lot of fun. I'll show you some stream highlights.
Is it the mustache? Who knows?
Alright. Internet won't let me stream today. We'll get some quality off-stream games and instead some exclusive YouTube content. Seems to be the only deck you're running into these days. But while building this deck, I did have Poppy Zed in mind. A lot of these vulnerables should do pretty well. Also play Make It Rains to get rid of the small elusives. We probably want to bank. Actually, I should have gone 1-drop into 1-drop, I think. Wait, actually, no, my opponent has the token on 3. I'll use Exhaust on 4. Yeah, I can just go Mirai Warden. Oh, nice. So I think in this matchup, the idea is basically we should be a bit faster than our opponent development-wise. They will not want to block a lot. But at some point, we'll force them to block. And then as long as we sometimes have vulnerables for their Zed or Poppy or elusives, or Make It Rain for the elusives, should generally be favored, I hope. Still requires some testing, of course. I think we block one of the Zed shadows. Now the question is, I do exhaust this. Do I pull with Warden? Probably not. Could go Waking Sands. Waking Sands really good. Renekton is quite decent. I like Renekton, I think. Okay. Who do we prefer to take out? Has to be Poppy, probably. Should make sure we don't die next turn. Worst case scenarios like Rangers Resolve Rally. I think we should be winning in our next attack. There's a pretty high chance my opponent plays more 1 HP units. Blade Scout, Shadow Assassin, Fleet Feather Tracker. If they swing in now, then of course it's a bit of a punish for not having used Make It Rain. I mean, in this case, I think I just developed twice, right? Oh, missequenced. Rockhopper first. Lobster, please. Alright, never punished. I mean, my opponent shouldn't really have anything to stop the overwhelm from Renekton. Okay. Pretty sure I can develop here. Any good defensive play on my opponent's side would be slow speed. And there's no real development punish. Like even Bright Steel Protector or Aegis doesn't do much because I have pew pew MF bullets. Shouldn't be an answer to a full swing now. Because we push at least 4 attack here. I guess double Twin Disciplines defensively or something like that. Even then we next turn have Make It Rain lethal. And then our opponent again needs to Nopify. Okay, there you go. It's like, yes, our opponent prevented lethal, but they expended pretty much all of their resources. Alright. Usually Make It Rain is never on my side. But we got him this time. Thing is, even if we hit all 3 units, right, there's only Zed left as an attacker. That's why I didn't go for the scout attack. Even in what was pretty close to absolute worst case scenario, we're still winning. Bonsai. Alright, Pink City. Interesting, we do have a lot of pingable targets. Talking about pingable targets. Opponent's gonna get a lot of Gangplank triggers rolling. Can't really do anything against it. Ah, red card's way too good. This is rough. Sweet. Yeah, blockers don't really matter too much here. Oh, I should have played Rockhopper probably. My opponent gets the Gangplank trigger anyway. Merchant in this deck. Wide. This gives another good Make It Rain, that's why I was hesitant. I need board space. Okay. Interesting game. This was a really good draw. The issue is if our opponent has Gangplank, we're probably dead on the next attack. Feels like my opponent has another TF. Should end round in that case. Actually, I can do something like this. Send the 1 HP units in. Okay, I guess my read was off. Oh, it's gotta be a Gangplank. Oh, I guess not. Should have maybe played the Hunter after all. So playing this pre-rally is actually best. Seems like we're in a war of attrition. I think I want to get rid of everything that can die to pings. Stinky 1-block, not the 1-1, that's interesting. Just don't draw Gangplank and we can be friends. Alright. I think we should be on the winning tracks here. The open attack could lose to double up. And there's a good chance this is double up if my opponent still hasn't played a card here. Oh, never mind. We take those. We'll still get the scouts. Main deck Minimorph. That's something I didn't expect. A bit too late, my friend. My opponent must be thinking, yo, I got this. The crazy 1 HP comeback, drew Gangplank at just the right time. And we're like, nah, some oranges for you, my friend. The epic backstab of the Citrus Courier. GG. In this case, the hired gun would have been better. I don't know what my opponent's playing, that's what made the development hard. So if they pass, we end round. Just stunt their development. Ooh, I like going for the MF level up, that's for sure. Probably do it now before my opponent can play. Here we protect MF here. It's... How many +2 attacks things is my opponent gonna have? My opponent probably plays plenty of vulnerables. If they play Sivir Renekton, that's a bit of my issue here. Then MF at least forces removal. I think that's fine. Wow, that's really good for us. Yeah, this deck can have some pretty insane early tempo and force our opponents into very awkward blocks. I like it. Bloody Business and Exhaust are really good for my opponents. Oh, this is awesome. Should be developing here, I'm pretty sure. Only reason not to is hold. Keep Make It Rain open. I don't think that's good. Alright, I think we're getting the MF flap here. We want to remove both on the first attack to play around Whirling Death. Okay, so we're not finishing our opponent, but we're getting rid of this very efficiently. Oh, it's been a while since I saw this animation. Feels good. Should definitely still be lethal on open attack. Like, make it run and exhaust Sivir to play around bloody business. Okay, to be honest, this is probably even better. Bit of a mistake by me to not do this first. I just realized that technically with like Bloody Business plus third Whirling Death, my opponent could survive. If we go Waking Sands, like if we trade Waking Sands first, the odds are for our opponent are worse. Let's push us one. This should be it. Actually, no, this should be it, right? Now we even beat Bloody Business. Otherwise, if Renekton pulls this, Sivir blocks somewhere else. Actually, we also beat Bloody Business that way. Ah, the pull still felt incorrect. I think Renekton still needs to pull the weak unit and the 2-1 pull Sivir. But apart from that, I think that was pretty good play.